You, Dr. Chris. Respected horse people, respected firefighters, respected veterinarians and academics, and all respected delegates. My topic assigned to me was the scope of large animal rescue in the northwestern Himalayan region of India, and just a brief introduction about the area. Basically, the northwestern Himalayan region, it comprises of three Indian states. That's Himachal Pradesh, that's Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir and Uttarakhand. And Himachal Pradesh, this is my state, so majority of my discussion will be on my state. Yeah. It comprises of 78% of the topography, it says mountains and valleys. 42% of the areas, that's the real area that it is lies in the cold arid zone, which is a desert zone, and with harsh climatic conditions and virtually remains inaccessible for at least 6 months in the year, because the mountain passes are closed and all the roads they cross to the mountain passes. So mountain passes, they are closed due to the snow, and we don't access to those areas in winter times. And in case of any emergencies, once in a while a helicopter lift is there, especially for the ill people. So that's the basically from November to May it's always closed, and it has a unique physical, biological, anthropological and typical hydrological settings, because there are a lot of glaciers there and most of the rivers, they are glacier fed. Now it's a myriad of extremes. The average elevations ranges from 200 meters, that's the foothills, the plains, and right up to 6,700 meters, right? The cultivable land, it's right up to 4,400 meters, right? And the mountain passes, these are the mode of access that is to this elevation. That is, basically we have 3 passes in the state: the Rohtang Pass 3980 meter, Kunzum Pass 4551 meters, and Sach Pass, and wild climatic variations. In the plains, they can be as hot as 43 degrees Celsius, and cold deserts minus 35 degrees Celsius. It's snowbound, and repeated snowfall is there. And high altitudes, high ultraviolet radiations, high temperature variations day and night, and high wind velocity, right, 45 to 60 miles per hour. And most of the rivers, they are glacier fed. This is the Rohtang Pass. This is the one of the highest passes, and it remains closed 6 months of the year. And this is one of the most traveled pass by tourists, especially from Europe and Australia in our places. So this is the work I am doing in the tribal areas. This is a animal welfare camp. This was a heifer. They suffer with hits with the rocks and suffer hernias. So this was being operated for hernia. This had a ruptured cornea. So just examining it, and ultimately will be going for the reparation of the cornea. This is we have a typical breed of horses. I will be showing the slide, which is the Spiti breed. It's a pony, less than 52 inches, and it's the only one found in the world that's in this area, and we call it the Spiti horse, the Chamurti, and it's very known for its sure-footedness on the snow. This is animal health camps and tribal areas. In addition to just seeing the animals, we just give them some lectures on how proper management of the animals, first aid, wound care, and something about rescue also. And these are the villagers. They're mostly they are tribals, and you can see the typical. This is courtyard just in front of the village temple, and mostly people, they are mixed Hindus and Buddhists. This is another tribal camp, right? We are giving a lecture on basically first aid of animals, how to keep their animals in good condition during winters. Then sometimes we are asked for selective surgeries also, since we are informed that these are surgeries which are lined up there, and we take the equipment there and do the surgeries right in the veterinary institutions located there. But whole of the equipment, even the drugs, these are ours. Now, animal husbandry is the mainstay, and 85% of the rural population, they are dependent on animal husbandry of my state. And the crop production is limited because the adverse weather conditions are there. The land is not good enough to till the land. It is quite rocky, and even the land holdings are very small. There are a lot of families, a lot of people there, but the individual share is quite less. So it's very difficult for mechanization of the land. And horticulture is quite prevalent there. Apples, apricot, walnuts, vegetables, mainly cauliflower, cabbage, radish, peas and carrots, these are major produce. And in fact, we are called the football of the state, for the country. Yeah. And mostly the animal husbandry comprises of two components. One is the household, and the second is the pastoralists. The tribals, they are the nomads, which go up and down the hills as per the seasonal variations. Now, what's the utility of large animals? Mostly we keep large animals and sheep and goat. Large animals, mostly cows and buffaloes. They are mostly for milk. We don't eat cows. Yeah. And cow bulls, buffalo bulls, draft power. And horses, donkeys, mules. And these are basically for the draft, and also the beast of burdens, which take up the commodities up and down the mountains. Then yak, it's a typical animal in our places, and its crosses, we cross them with the local hill cattle, and that comes out to be a churu and churi, which we use for milk, and some people, they use them for meat also, right? So since the mechanization of farm operations is quite less, so they are used commonly in this terrain, and dependency is then on the milk, that is protein, farming operations, and tourism also. Many recreation activities, especially the trekking, is going on, and people from various countries, they come to these places and go for trekking. So these are utilized for trekking purposes also. And especially since the roads are located very far away from the houses, so usually these donkeys and mules, they are used for transportation and construction material, and the dung is used for organic farmyard manure also. So organic farming is not quite prevalent there. This is the typical hilly cattle with the lady and the calf that's in the barn. Now this is the plowing of land. Totally, this is organic agriculture, and see the land is undulating, quite undulating land, and this is a land. This is a field of a different farmer. This is a different. So they employ different animals for them. So that's why this mechanization is not there. And the typical terrain, you can see the valley, and this is not accessible. The nearest road is like here, almost 6 kilometers from this place, and you have to cross the river from this place. This again seasonal agriculture. It's on the season, especially it is the month of October when they till the land. Now this is maybe the horses, they are used for plowing the fields, especially in high altitude areas, below the snow line. So it's quite common. The horses, they are used for plowing the fields. Another, ponies replacing bullocks. Now many pastoralists, especially the Gujars, these are basically, they are nomads, and they mostly keep these buffaloes, and mostly for milk. They don't eat them, no meat, just for milk. So they will traveling up and down the hills, or maybe sometimes on the roads also. So that's a typical migratory pattern of animal husbandry. These are the gaddis. So I just woke them up. They were sleeping, and for the shot, yeah, and they are their sheep, and along with them they keep the horses also, and ponies also, donkeys also, for taking their commodities with the sheep. So this is the typical breed of lot of hairy. This is the Chamurti, the Spiti horse, right? And this is they are taking the commodities of the pastoralists with the sheep stock up and down the hills. The personal effects here. Now this is the yak. It is grazing in the high altitude areas with the cattle, and mostly yaks, they are very sure-footed, and they use them for meat also, for milk also, and especially they weave some clothing material from the yaks. Yeah. This is the typical Spiti or Chamurti pony. If you Google them, you will find them. This is the beast of burden, and very sure-footed in the snows, and they also call them the tiger of the snows. The tourism and trekking, nicely decked up horse, ready to get tourists up. This is tribal trekking. Again, this is just the glacier is melting, and this person, he's the guide, and he'll be taking the tourists up through the passes. So they're the mules. This is the typical. See, the flooding is there, so they have the army people. They have constructed a Bailey Bridge here, and this is the motorable point, and the village lies right up here. And see the terrain, and the mules, they are donkeys, they are commonly taken from this, the construction material and other commodities, they are taken up to the hill through these. They line of them, almost 40 of them, yeah. And see the terrain, they suffer many injuries here. Construction materials, the Tibetan lamas, they also own these mules, and this is the motorable point. From here, this sand is going to be taken down to the village. Another right on the roadside, that's a tribal area. See the roads, they are not metalled, and typical rocks there. Sometimes they fall and they suffer injuries. So the construction material is being taken up. The vegetable produce, especially the cabbages, they are on the horsebacks. They are traveling to the jungle and reach the last motorable point, and from there they will be transferred to the vehicles and to the cities. But this is a distance of say about three days on foot. So they stop over in the mountain passes below the caves, and then they travel to the last motorable points. Another slide, vegetable produce. So we have a typical climatic influences which even the humans and the animals they suffer. The blizzards, snowstorms, avalanches, quite common. Then flash floods. That's a new phenomena. Flash floods due to the global warming. We getting a lot of flash floods in the recent years. And that cloudburst, you must have heard about the cloudburst recently in India last year. That's Uttarakhand and Badrinath tragedies. A lot of people died, almost 20,000 casualties, and livestock maybe in thousands. They have just perished, and even the reports were 20,000 people, but maybe right up to 40,000 people they have perished in this. And really livestock they suffer because most of the livestock they were used for carrying the pilgrims to these temples. Then forest fires, we have bushfires, right? Many animals they suffer from it, but we don't have any SCS rescue teams, no firefighters. It's too unlikely situation. Then earthquakes, we suffer earthquakes also, and we live in a very high seismic zone, zone 4 and zone 5. And many livestock they suffer due to earthquakes, because even the humans they are not taken care of. So what to talk of animals? So basically the risk factor for animals. First is the pasture grazing, because stall feeding is quite uncommon, especially in the tribal areas, because the grasses are very less. Then large animals, they are usually sent to the pastures for months together, especially the male species. They are sent to the pasture for long periods, maybe 4 months. And the whole of the village send the animals, and nobody to take care of them, just they feed in the pastures, and then as the winter sets in, they are herded back to the homes. Then typical vagaries of nature. Then predation is quite common there, especially we have snow leopards and mountain bears, they predate upon these animals. Then poor mechanization, firstly due to the small farm size. Then financial viability is not there. Accessibility for the companies to come there is not there. Then repairs and maintenance facilities are not there, possible there. And even the fuel and gas stations, they are really unavailable. Whenever we go to the camps there, we have to just carry extra gas with us, because the last motorable point is almost 250 kilometers down for we can replenish our stocks. So large animals, typical the beast of burdens, mostly predation by bears and leopards. And we have a typical phenomena. We feel like a country of hypocrites. Street and stray cattle menace we have. Though we worship the cow, but the phenomena is we don't have feed. We just leave them out in the open. They die on the roads. They are killed by the vehicles, and so that's a typical food scarcity, urbanization, and social apathy, which is contributing to this factor. And increased road network in the areas, that's also contributing factor. And we are getting a lot of snake bites in the plain areas, right? Vipers and cobra bites are very common, and sadly we don't have good supplies of anti-venom, even for humans sometimes. Yeah, so at least in our state, we suffered 40 deaths of humans this season due to viper and cobra bites. This is a typical open pasture grazing. They are away, these are nomads, and these are some of the local cattle which have been left open for months together without any care, and all they are exposed to the vagaries of nature. Again, open loose grazing. These are being herded to the pastures. This lady just herding them to the pastures. This is a typical pasture. This is high up. This is slightly low hills. Almost 30,000 meters above mean sea level. These are the animals, they are away for months together. These are on the riverside. So they may need a rescue. These are yaks, high, and this is the snow line, and usually the snows all through. This is especially the season of, this is rainy season, August month. So these are all yaks, and this is the mountain passes through which they cross. This high up in the mountains, and we suffer many casualties. See the terrain here, and many animals, they suffer falls from these places. This is another area. This is the tribal area. These are the mountain passes. They may need rescues. Sudden flash floods take place. They are grazing it. The shepherd is nearby, but suddenly high up in the reaches, if it rains heavily, so the water comes gushing down. It's a flood, and they all washed away. See the cows. They are sent. This is the tribal area. See the terrain. They are just sent for drinking water, and on the way up, they can suffer injuries here also. Another, see the terrain. So these are accidents. This cow, this fell down and has a laceration on the tongue, and along with this, it had a paralysis of the tongue. And this case was reported to me after 2 days. The animal was brought back down from the hills, and then we see it. This was a mule. This suffered a hit on the masseter muscle, and this was a gaping hole out here. But luckily, and the ingesta was coming out from this side. So luckily, we were able to repair it, and it's good. This is a street cattle. I took it from the vehicle just to emphasize the point. They are right on the roads. This is the national highway. When we are coming back to the tribal areas, lying on the side of the roads, just abandoned, having a hit. See, just on the road. Another side. This is right. This is also in the different sites. Right in the tribal areas also, in the plains also, we have this menace. So what's the scope for large animal rescue in our places, right? The region's topography and terrain, that offers the scope for rescue. Then animal husbandry practices, the loose grazing and pastoralist attitudes. So definitely these animals, they need rescue. And climatic extremes, they are quite there. And the specialized veterinary services, we offer our services only in the 6 months of the year. Otherwise, there are veterinary hospitals there where we don't have doctors, we don't have paravets there. So these, basically, they are at the risk of owners and at the mercy of God. These are man-made factors. We had a lot of forest fires and automobile hits. These are the new emerging factors. Then at the policy level, we don't have any disaster rescue management policies, no networks, and no skills. So that was one of my purpose to come here and just to learn about what rescue is about, because it's a new thing for us. Now, how rescue management techniques can be used in our condition? First is the training of specialized persons. That's the vets, at the first instance to begin with. Then participation of local population, especially the youth, in the rescue teams in the tribal areas, because every time they don't have services of the vet. So these local people need to be actively engaged in participation in these rescue techniques. Then the stakeholders, the farmers, the nomads, they need to be sensitized about this. And from my point of view, being in the academics, we need a curriculum development in vet schools. So at least veterinarians who are trained in our college and who are to serve the state, they need to be sensitized about this aspect, and a curriculum has to be developed on large animal rescue in our place. Then especially disaster-specific techniques, especially with the automobile hits, rescue from floods, cloudbursts, avalanches, as has been discussed by many of the speakers here, and rescue from earthquakes, that's something very different, and rescue from fall from heights, just because the terrain is such, we need typical techniques. So what I hope to take back from the conference, specialized rescue techniques, as told by majority of the experts, Dr. Rebecca, Dr. Christie, and the firefighter Hatchie. Logistics, we need logistics, and for that money is needed, and government has to be sensitized for it. Then rescue management, that has to be a proper approach should be there. And then we need trained, specialized and general practitioners especially for the rescue purpose. Then public participation, they need to be sensitized that rescue has to be then, because animal loss is a terrible economic loss for the country also. Then curriculum development for vets and students, the veterinarians especially, they need to be sensitized. They have no idea about it, at least in our place. So they need to be sensitized that vet rescue, the animal rescue, large animal rescue, it is the main thing. And the vet education, vet students and public in general, they need to be educated. That's all. And thank you for Agri Food Skills Australia and Horses SA for sponsoring me for the visit. And thank you Australia for the hospitality and the warmth you have given me. Thank you very much.